I accidentally discovered that my dad has been stealing a third of all my savings for the past 8 years, since I was 11. And when I confronted him, he told me he was going to keep taking my money and that I should just deal with it. I don't know exactly when I stopped trusting my own father. I guess it started the way important things usually do, quietly. No big argument. No obvious betrayal. Just small details. I was 19 when it happened. But this story doesn't start there. It starts when I was 11. That was the year my mom died. And my dad changed. Not suddenly. Not like in movies where someone becomes cold or cruel overnight. No, it was more subtle. More functional. He became someone who handled the basics. Food on the table, a roof over my head, clear rules. But everything else disappeared. Long conversations. Laughter. The feeling of home. It was like living with a manager. Not a father. At 11, I started saving money. Not out of discipline. Out of necessity. My dad wasn't the type to give money. If I wanted something, I had to earn it. So I started small, helping neighbors, washing cars, mowing lawns, pet-sitting, everything a kid can do when he realizes too early that nothing will be handed to him for free. I remember my first important bill perfectly. $20. I kept it in a small metal box I found in the garage. It was old, scratched, but to me, it was perfect. It was mine. And what was inside it was mine too. Over time, that little box became something more. It wasn't just money. It was control. It was security. It was future independence. At 13, I already had a few hundred. At 15, over 1,000. At 17, almost $6,000. All earned by me. No help. No gifts. Nothing. My dad knew I was saving. Of course he knew. But he never showed much interest. He'd just say things like, "It's good you're learning the value of money." That's it. He never asked to see how much I had. Never asked to borrow any. Never really touched the subject. Or so I thought. When I turned 18, I decided to do something adult. I opened my first bank account. It felt strange. Walking into the bank with all that cash. It felt like I was carrying years of my life in a backpack. Literally. The bank teller helped me. She was kind. Smiling. She explained everything. And that's when it happened. The moment. The small detail that broke everything. "Do you want us to transfer the money you already have in your account?" I looked at her, confused. "What account?" She frowned slightly, turned the screen toward me, and there it was. My name, my last name, and a history. Deposits, withdrawals, transactions, years of transactions. Something cold ran down my spine. "No, that can't be mine." She hesitated. "It's under your name. It was opened when you were a minor. Probably by your legal guardian." My dad. The air in that moment changed. "Can I see the transactions?" I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. And then I saw it. Regular deposits. Many of them matched times I remembered saving money. But also, withdrawals. Constant. Small, but constant. It wasn't all the money. No, it was worse. It was about a third. Always. Like someone had decided, that was their share. My stomach dropped. "Who can withdraw money from this account?" "Your legal guardian, in this case, your father." Silence. 8 years. 8 years of working, of saving, of trusting that what was mine, stayed mine, and someone had been going in, taking apart, without saying anything, without permission, without explanation. Can I see how far back this goes? The screen showed the first transaction. I was 11, exactly when I started saving. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't recent. It wasn't occasional. It was systematic. I left the bank with a feeling I couldn't name. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. Something that settles in your chest and doesn't leave. Betrayal. But not just any betrayal. The worst kind. The kind that comes from someone who was supposed to protect you. That night, I didn't say anything. I sat in my room, opened the metal box. Empty. Because months ago, I had started depositing everything into the bank. I thought about every bill, every hour worked, every afternoon under the sun, and every withdrawal. Silent. Invisible. Calculated. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't desperate. It was a decision. My father had decided, for years, that a part of what was mine was his. And the worst part is that he didn't even have the courage to tell me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Because I knew that the next day, I would have to look him in the eyes and ask him something that would change everything. Why? But deep down, I already knew that wasn't the real question. The real question was, who are you, really? And I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. I didn't confront him right away. And that was the part that drove me the most insane. Because when you discover something like that, your mind doesn't sit still. It turns into some kind of interrogation room. Everything comes back. Everything gets reinterpreted. I remembered every time my dad walked into my room without knocking. Every time he organized things. Every time he told me, "Leave that there, I'll put it away later." Back then, those moments meant nothing. Now, they meant everything. That night I went downstairs to the kitchen to get some water. It was late. The house was quiet. And there he was, sitting at the table, with a beer, staring at nothing. For a second, I thought about going back upstairs, pretending I didn't know anything, buying myself some time. But no, I couldn't anymore. "We need to talk." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He looked up slowly, not surprised, not worried, just annoyed. Now, It's important, he sighed. That same sigh he always used when something bothered him. Go ahead. I didn't sit down. I stayed standing. I didn't want to feel small. I went to the bank today. Silence. No immediate reaction. But I saw it. A split second. A tension in his jaw. He knew. And, he said, I found an account in my name. Another silence. Heavier this time. Like it was nothing. With transactions going back to when I was 11. Nothing. With constant withdrawals. Nothing. Withdrawals you made. That's when it shifted. Not in a big way. He didn't yell. Didn't stand up. He just set the bottle down on the table. And looked at me. Directly. And in that look, there was no guilt. There was calculation. Yes, that was it. Yes. Not an excuse. Not an explanation. Not a let me explain. Just confirmation. I felt something break inside me. Yes. What? Yes. I made those withdrawals. Just like that. Flat. Why? The question came out stronger than I expected. He leaned back in his chair. Like we were talking about something casual. Because you were a minor. Well, you were. I handled that. That doesn't answer anything. Yes, it does. No, it didn't. You took money from me. 4 years, I managed your money. That phrase. That damn phrase. I felt the heat rise to my head. No, you stole from me. That's when he changed. A little. Not anger. No, something colder. Watch how you talk. What do you want me to call it? A donation? A tax? He leaned forward. I call it responsibility. I laughed. Not because it was funny. It was dry. In disbelief. Responsibility? Taking a third of everything I earn without telling me? You lived under my roof. There it was. The card. The universal justification. I gave you food, electricity, water, clothes. I'm your son. Exactly. Silence. This wasn't a conversation. It was a wall. That doesn't give you the right to take my money. Yes, it does. He didn't hesitate. As long as you live here, everything goes through me. I felt something go cold inside me. I earned that money, and you survived because of me. Again. Always the same. But this time, it didn't work. Why didn't you ever tell me? That was the part that burned the most. If he had told me from the beginning, maybe. I don't know. But he just shrugged. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. 8 years. 8 years of silence. How much did you take? What I considered fair. How much? He sighed. Annoyed. About a third. Confirmed. It wasn't in my head. It wasn't a mistake. It was a system. Give it back. Silence. And then, he smiled. Not a kind smile. Not a proud one. A small one. Short. Cold. No, that word weighed more than everything else. What? I'm not giving it back. My heart started pounding harder. It's mine. No, he stood up. For the first time. Now there was tension. That money is already gone. On what? On the house. On you. On things. Things. Always things. That's not what we agreed on. What did we agree on? That's where I went quiet. Because he was right about one thing. There was never an agreement. And that made it worse. Listen carefully, he said, stepping a little closer. As long as you're under this roof, pause. This is going to keep happening. The world went silent. What? I'm going to keep taking apart. He didn't say it angrily. Didn't raise his voice. He said it like he was stating a rule. A law. Unmovable. And if you don't like it, he shrugged. You deal with it. That's when everything changed. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the betrayal. It was that. The certainty. That he didn't feel it. That he didn't care. That he wasn't going to stop. I just stood there, looking at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see my dad. I saw someone else. Someone I didn't know. And worse, someone I could no longer trust. I went back to my room without saying anything else, but as I closed the door, an idea started to form. Not impulsive. Not emotional. Cold. Clear. If he wasn't going to stop, then I was going to have to do something to stop him, and it wasn't going to be a conversation. I didn't cry. And that was the strangest part, because when someone betrays you like that, you expect a break, but I didn't. I sat on my bed, in silence, staring at the wall, and I started thinking, not as a son, as someone who had just been robbed for 8 years, and the thief lived in the room next door. The first thing I did was accept something uncomfortable. He wasn't going to change. It didn't matter how many times I talked to him. It didn't matter how much I explained. It didn't matter how much it hurt. To him, this was normal. So the question stopped being, how do I make him understand? And became, how do I stop him? I opened my laptop, logged into my bank account. There it all was. Years of transactions, deposits, withdrawals, dates, amounts. It was like reading a story, but written in numbers. And every line said the same thing, you're not safe. I started doing the math. Month by month. Year by year. At first it was hard. Then, mechanical. And finally, clear. It wasn't exactly a third. It was worse. Some months he took more. Others less. But he always took something. When I finished adding it all up, I just stared at the number. It wasn't small. It was enough to change a lot of things. Enough to pay for studies. Enough to move out. Enough to start. And he had taken it. I felt anger. Yes. But also something else. Determination. Because I realized something: if I did nothing, this would continue. Not just with that money. With everything. My privacy. My decisions. My life. So I did the first logical thing. I went to the bank the next day. This time I wasn't confused. I was prepared. I want to close this account. The same teller helped me. She recognized me. Everything okay? No, she didn't ask anything else. Checked the system. We need authorization from the co-holder or guardian. There it was. The problem. My dad. What if I'm already an adult? She hesitated. It depends on how the account was opened. In this case, it's still linked to him. Perfect. The system was designed to protect me, and at the same time, it protected him. Can he keep withdrawing money? Yes, of course he could. I left the bank with one certainty: being angry wasn't enough. I had to move fast. That same afternoon, I went to another bank, opened a new account. Only in my name. No him. No links. No open doors. It felt strange. For the first time, something was completely mine. But there was a problem. The money was still in the other account. And as long as it stayed there, he could keep touching it. That night I didn't go down for dinner. I didn't want to see him, didn't want to talk. But I heard him. In the kitchen. Calm. Like nothing had happened. Like the night before had been irrelevant. And that confirmed something: he wasn't taking me seriously. He thought I'd just deal with it. Like always. Mistake. I waited. 2 days. Watching. And then I noticed it. A pattern. He always withdrew money on the same day of the week. Always in the afternoon. Always after work. It wasn't impulsive. It was routine. And routines can be predicted. On the third day, I went to the bank early. I want to withdraw all the available money. The teller looked at me. All of it? All of it. There was a pause. Typing. Screen. And then, another pause. There's a partial restriction due to the other account holder, of course. But not everything was blocked. I could take a large portion. Not all. But enough. I signed. Waited. And when the money was in front of me, I felt something strange. Not happiness. Not relief. Something colder. Control. I took the money. And for the first time in 8 years, I knew exactly where it was. And who had it? Me. But I knew this wasn't over. Because when he found out, he wasn't going to react well. And this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. I didn't have to wait long. It was that same afternoon. I heard the door open. The usual sound. Keys. Footsteps. Silence. Normal. Until it wasn't. What did you do? It wasn't a shout. Not at first. It was worse. A restrained voice. Tense. I knew it was for me. I walked downstairs slowly. There he was. In the living room. Phone in hand. The banking app open. And that look. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't confusion. It was pure anger. Did you take the money? I didn't answer right away. Not out of fear. But because I wanted to choose my words carefully. I took my money. That emphasis set him off. That money isn't just yours. There it was again. The same narrative. The same lie repeated until it sounded like truth. No. That money is mine. I earned it. He took a step toward me. You can't make decisions like that without talking about it. I almost laughed. Talk about it? After 8 years? Talk about it like you did when you were taking it from me? Silence. For a second, I threw him off. But only for a second. That was different. Of course. It was always different when he did it. You don't have access to that money anymore, I said. Mistake. Because that's when he snapped. Who do you think you are? Now his voice rose. So you think because you turned 18 you can do whatever you want? No, I think because it's mine, I get to decide what happens to it. You live in my house. That doesn't give you the right to steal from me. That word again. And this time, he didn't let it slide. Don't you ever call me a thief again. The shout filled the house. But I didn't move. Because I wasn't 11 anymore. Then stop acting like one. Silence. The kind of silence where you know, you crossed a line. But also know, there was no other option. He stepped closer. Too close. Listen carefully, he said, lowering his voice. Worse than yelling. That money was part of what kept this house running. No, that money was mine. And now you're going to give it back. There it was. The order. Not a request. Not a discussion. An order. No one word. But heavy. Irreversible. What do you mean no? I mean no. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And in a way, he was right. I wasn't the same anymore. You're going to give it to me, he insisted. No, I'm telling you and I'm telling you no. Silence again. But this time, different. Darker. More dangerous. Because something had shifted. He didn't have control anymore. And that, he didn't like. If you won't do it the easy way, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The threat was there. Clear. My heart started racing. But I didn't step back. You're not touching that money again. And then he said it. The sentence that finally broke everything. As long as you live here, I can do whatever I want. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Confident. Certain. Like it was law. And in that moment, something hit me harder than anything before. This wasn't just about money. It was about control. About power. About someone who wasn't going to stop, because he never believed he had to. And right there, I made a decision. Not impulsive. Not emotional. Necessary. Then I'm not going to live here. Silence. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was empty. because that sentence wasn't a threat, it was a fact. What did you say? I'm leaving. I looked at him, straight on. I'd rather start from zero than stay here and keep losing everything. He didn't answer right away, and for the first time, I saw something different on his face. Not anger, not control, something else, something I didn't expect. Doubt, but it was too late, because the decision was already made, and this time, there was no going back. I didn't pack my bags right away, and that surprised even me, because when you say I'm leaving, it sounds impulsive, but what I felt wasn't impulse, it was clarity. I went up to my room, closed the door, and sat on my bed. I looked around. My desk, my clothes, my things, everything that, in theory, was mine, but it didn't feel that way anymore. Because I understood something very simple: a place stops being your home when you have to defend yourself inside it. That night we barely spoke. My dad stayed in his room. I stayed in mine. Two people living under the same roof, but completely separate. There were no apologies, no attempts to fix anything, and that was what gave me the final answer I needed. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a decision. The next day, I started moving. I didn't have a perfect plan. I didn't have everything figured out, but I had something more important to control. I called a friend, the same one I had called before. I explained everything. There was a long silence on the other end. "That's not right," he said. "No," I replied. "It's not." He offered to let me stay at his place for a few days. I accepted. Not for comfort, out of necessity. That same day, I started packing the basics: clothes, documents, my laptop, and the money, always with me. Not in the house, not out of my sight, with me. While I was packing, my dad appeared at the door. He just stood there, watching. He didn't say anything at first, just observed, like he was seeing something he couldn't fully process. "Are you really leaving?" He didn't sound angry. He sounded confused. "Yes." Silence. "Over this." It wasn't a question, it was a statement disguised as one. "Yes, over this." He crossed his arms. "You're overreacting." That phrase, after everything, after 8 years, after all that had happened. Overreacting? I repeated. I looked at him, and this time there was no anger. There was something worse: detachment. "You took money from me for years, without telling me, without permission, and you told me you were going to keep doing it." Pause. "That's not overreacting." He didn't respond, and for the first time, he had no argument, but he also had no regret, and that was what closed everything. I finished packing. Before leaving, I paused at the door. Not to hesitate, to make sure. I looked at the house. 8 years. 8 years of effort, of growth, of silence, and of something I now understood better: control disguised as care. I opened the door, and before I walked out, I said something I hadn't planned. That money wasn't just money. My dad looked up. It was trust. Silence. And that's the one thing you can't get back. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, closed the door, and this time, it was final. The first few days felt strange, sleeping somewhere else, adjusting, but also, lighter, like I had taken off a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. With the money I recovered, I did something I had wanted to do for years. I got organized, opened a secure account, made a budget, looked for ways to study and work at the same time. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. Every decision, every step, mine. Weeks passed, then months. My dad tried to contact me. Messages, calls. At first, I didn't respond, not out of resentment, but because I needed distance. When we finally talked, it was different. Colder, more direct. He never apologized, never admitted what he did was wrong. He just said things like, "I did it for the house. It was necessary." You don't understand how things work, and that's when I understood one final thing: not all conflicts get resolved. Some just end. I never lived with him again. I never trusted him the same way, but I didn't stay stuck in it either. Because in the end, this wasn't about losing money. It was about learning something that changed me forever. Setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who respects yourself. And sometimes, to build your life, you have to leave the place where you learned how to survive. I'm 22 now. Still working. Still studying. I don't have everything figured out. But I have something I didn't have before: peace. And every time I look at my account, every number, every dollar, reminds me of the same thing: no one gets to decide for me anymore. Never again.